So you know something about, I warned people when I used to work at the Young Turks before they took the $20 million from DNC donors and became MSNBC Light and lied to you about everything from Russiagate to Ukraine war to the Syrian war and censorship. They're pro-censorship at the Young Turks, and I warned them that it starts with Alex Jones and it's going to come for you. Well, it's not going to come for them because they're never going to go against the establishment, but it's going to come. It came for people. It went from Alex Jones, and then it went to leading doctors and scientists like yourself. It went to leading journalists, and then it went to former presidents of the United States. So they can ban anybody and take away your freedom of speech. And of course I was right. And so now they're doing this thing with TikTok. And of course, they're doing it. They're doing it under the. Now you know something about being censored, so I want to get your input on this story. Now they're doing this on TikTok, and they're saying that they're doing this for national security reasons, which is what every dictator always says when he censors. I'm doing this to keep you guys safe. And so I just want to tell you, Congressman Massey has blown the lid off this. It's not what you think it is. This isn't, by the way, this isn't just about TikTok. So the so-called TikTok ban is a Trojan horse, says Congressman Massey. He says the president will be given the power to ban websites, not just apps. The person breaking the new law is deemed to be the U.S. or offshore internet hosting service or app store, not the foreign adversary. So let me just, by the way.
Yeah, what we're going to have is the hosting services are now going to become censors.
Yes, and so the hosting services now, not just the Twitter or Facebook or your website.
GoDaddy is going to become your local neighborhood censor.
That's right, and they're going to give the president of the United States the ability to decide who is a foreign adversary and who isn't. And I wouldn't give this current president the remote for an oscillating fan, let alone the. I mean, the guy doesn't know if he's looking at a painting or the weather outside his own window. Somehow he's going to be able to decide what should be censored and what shouldn't. So here it is.
He is just a paper cutout. He's just a surrogate.
Right.
And it's ISA that's going to be running this. And they've already showed their true colors. What they're going to do is use this to censor opposition.
That's exactly what this is about. And so too many people.
And by the way, I've met Massey in person. You probably have too. And I just want to give a shout out. He is a well-trained technical expert in his area. He's extremely intelligent. He's not some wackadoodle crackpot. This is, as I recall, he's MIT trained. This is a serious engineer intellect who is looking at what's going on as a patriot in his country and is speaking against the approved narrative, and it's costing him, and he still has the courage to continue speaking out. I think we need to, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm explicitly recognizing the courage and fortitude and intellect of Mr. Massey because I respect him deeply.
I respect him also. He's consistent. I have certain political differences with him, but I never have to worry about. He is consistent and he does have integrity, and especially around things like this and war, which is a big.
He answers questions.
And he answers questions. Yeah. He doesn't run from questions.
Yep.
And so here is the bill, H.R. 7521, and it says, to protect the national security of the United States from the threat posed by foreign adversary-controlled applications such as TikTok and any successor application or service and any other application or service developed or provided by ByteDance Limited or any entity under the control of ByteDance Limited. But listen to this. So when they say foreign, the term foreign adversary-controlled application means a website, a desktop application, a mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application that is operated directly or indirectly, including through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate. So that means any website, That's what. So that means anything, anywhere, at any time.
And
it's like Grand Theft Auto with no rules.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Pushback is going to be this is restricted narrowly. That's the way it's being sold. This is one of the most narrowly written bills ever because it's restricted to, what was it, ByteDance, the parent company?
Yeah.
But then it has this other language in it. This is just the same kind of nefarious stuff they're doing with the international health regulations and the World Health Organization pandemic treaty right now, is they'll have language in there that can cut two ways. And they'll focus on the more benign explanation. But then, as soon as this kind of stuff passes, they're going to flip right around and take the more extreme interpretation and implement it.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
We can't trust them.
At all.
That's the problem with the destruction of trust that's happened over the last 4 years and beyond, is we now know that we can't give these people an inch because they'll take a mile.
So wait, there's a carve out in that. Do you know about that?
There's more to this. So it shall be unlawful for an entity to distribute, maintain, or update, or enable the distribution, maintenance, or updating of a foreign adversary-controlled application by carrying out within the land or maritime borders of the United States any of the following: providing services to distribute, maintain, or update such foreign adversary-controlled application by means of a marketplace, including an online mobile application store through which users within the land or maritime borders of the United States may access, maintain, or update such applications, providing internet hosting services to enable the distribution. So anybody and anything. And here's what Massey says. He says, if you think this isn't a Trojan horse and will apply only to TikTok and foreign adversary social media companies, then contemplate why someone thought it was important to get a very specific exclusion for the internet-based business written into the bill. And here's the cutout that you're talking about.
You know who it's for?
They say the term covered company does not include an entity that operates a website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented immersive technology application whose primary purpose is to allow users to post product reviews, business reviews, or travel information and reviews. Yeah. So why do they need to have that cutout?
It's not for Yelp. It's for Amazon to get into that business. Did you know that?
That's right. That's for Amazon. That's what that's for.
They're about to launch their thing where you could do all the stuff the other ones do.
So this guy says, so here, Thomas Massey, this guy says, but the bill opens with by foreign adversary controlled applications such as TikTok and any successor application or service, and it says ByteDance. How is this broader? This guy asked Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey says that is window dressing, as they say. Title, description, whereas clauses are not the operable portions of the bill. The operable portions of the bill begins with Section 2. So exactly as you just explained and described, Doctor, is that's not the part of the bill they're going to use when they go to shut you down. They're going to use They
do the same trick with the international health regulation modifications and the WHO pandemic treaty. The precise exact same trick is they throw the happy talk into the preamble and then they get down to business and it's not so pretty.
And they're going to get away with anything that we aren't paying attention to. So the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And a lot of people just go to sleep because they think, well, the people at the New York Times and CNN, if there was a problem, they would let me know. Of course not. Right. Of course they wouldn't. Of course, they all want, by the way, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, Fox, and MSNBC, they all want TikTok banned. Why do they want TikTok banned? Because it's a competitor. Just because they want YouTube shut down and they have suppressed independent news on YouTube because we're a competitor. And that's exactly why they want. 1 out of 3 people in the United States watches TikTok for 90 minutes a day, and they're getting their news from TikTok. And so
this is a world in which there are multiple truths all at the same time. There's no question that TikTok is a China propaganda tool, is a CCP propaganda tool. It's incredibly powerful. And so we've got a situation of half-truths and mixtures of good and bad conflicts of interest, all as a great big broth. And in my mind, there's no question that TikTok is a weapon that is training our youth. And it is extremely powerful technology. Is this really what we need to think about how this is being deployed, who it's having an impact on? The problem is serious, but as soon as you can see, as soon as anybody tries to make a good faith effort, assuming this was good faith, to address one problem, it all gets twisted and transformed and exploited to advance a variety of corporatist interests. We're right back at the same place we started.
So I would push back on you about TikTok. Now, I've been kicked off TikTok. We've been completely censored, as is Glenn Greenwald, as of you. So I didn't get kicked off because I was criticizing China.
Yeah.
I got kicked off because I was criticizing the United States policy in Ukraine and the United States policy in Israel, Gaza. So who got me kicked off? China doesn't give a shit. Who got me kicked off was the CIA and the intelligence community in the United States, which TikTok has bent over backwards to accommodate. And why is that? Because TikTok is run by a guy from Singapore who went to Harvard Business School, and he wants to keep his business inside the United States. So he went to the intelligence community in the United States, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and they said, we'll censor anything. They're the most censored. They're worse than Facebook and YouTube over at TikTok. And so they're like, we'll censor anybody at any time for you. And so that's what's actually happening. So it's the CIA that's running TikTok. I wouldn't be so worried about the Chinese government, because if they wanted to get information on United States citizens, they can buy it from all the other apps, which is what the government does anyways, the United States government. So they can get all that data. They could just pay for it if they wanted. So this idea that TikTok's getting unique data that other people don't have, it's not I think that's propaganda.
What, are they going to send a balloon to my house?
And
what are they going to do with my data in China
right.
that my government isn't doing to me? Way worse
already. So that's right. So every email.
Fair argument.
So that would be my pushback on that. And so I wouldn't. And by the way, if China is such an enemy of us, why is it that the United States manufacturers have sent all our manufacturing to China? I can't wait to see these maniacs who trying to start a war with Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine. I can't wait till these maniacs actually start a war with China, and then we can't have anything in America anymore because we don't make anything in America. How do you go to war with a country that makes everything that's necessary for your country to run?
Including our viruses now.
We're
back making viruses with them.
And not to mention real estate.
And our nutraceuticals.
And exactly. And they make our medicine, right? That's what nutraceuticals are?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and if they really were afraid of the Chinese, why wouldn't they ban Chinese billionaires from buying real estate in the United States and artificially inflating the prices of our real estate here in the United States so it's out of reach for most regular people right now to buy a home? Millennials can't afford to buy a home. Why? Because they artificially inflate, because they let billionaires buy all the land they want, all the property they want. And by the way, those properties sit empty, right? So if I would be for banning foreign ownership of real estate in the United States. Of course, you're never going to get that because the real estate industry has another corporate capture of our governments, and they want it, right? Because it provides everybody makes more money. Yeah. So anything, well, I really appreciate you making time for us today. Anything, any last words you'd like to say about the censoring regime that's happening in America, and how I'm just blown away that I grew up and I thought I was a lefty Democrat, and the Democrats have completely flipped. They've become pro-war, they've become pro-censorship, anti-free speech, and they're not even for bodily autonomy. They're not pro-choice anymore. The Democrats are anti-choice. What they say is they're pro-abortion. First of all, nobody's pro-abortion, okay? People are for keeping the government out from in between a doctor and a patient. And when an abortion has to happen, it has to happen. Nobody's pro that happening.
You haven't heard of that?
That's what they're left with now, Kurt, because they can't say pro-choice because they all flipped on their value when it came to COVID and mandates, and they took your choice away. And so now they can say, oh, I'm only for pro-abortion, but I'm not pro-choice, because they're not pro-choice. Would you agree with that, Doctor?
I would. And I have really, let's say, evolved in my position on abortion also. I'm convinced that abortion is morally wrong. I'm convinced that, particularly after the second month, that this is a practice which takes the life of a human being. But I, like you, have gone on this journey of discovery and revealing things which I never suspected, and realizing that much of what I've been taught throughout my entire life, including one of the first things that I ever encountered as a young person when I was conscious, which is the assassination of JFK. I have, as a Californian native, born in Palo Alto, raised in the Central Coast of California, I've gone on a similar journey as you have, as have many people across this country. And that's the hope of RFK Jr. right now, is that many of us that once thought of ourselves as Democrat voters have found ourselves betrayed at the core, that the party has left us. And much of what, speaking for myself, what I've found is that what I truly believe, my core belief system, is aligned with what many people now call constitutional conservatism. The belief that this constitutional document carries with it core wisdom and belief and structures that can protect us from government overreach and from all sorts of forms of authoritarianism. And the other day, let me just share an anecdote. I was approached by Cheryl Gay Stolberg. Do you know who Cheryl is? New York Times reporter, hardcore. Did a lot of their reporting in the medicine field. And I was at the Ron Johnson testimony recently when she approached me. She's taken a leave of absence from New York Times to write a book. And frankly, as soon as I know her, and as soon as I saw her, my guard went up immediately. But one of the first things out of her mouth was that many Democrats that she knows are now completely alienated from the party and feel that the party has left them, and they're now searching for a new political home, much like what you're suggesting. And that's when you first asked me to come on, that's what I was told was Jimmy Dore is somebody who has always represented a center-left position, and yet he's willing to discuss what has gone on with the COVID crisis and the jab. And I was really enthusiastic about coming on because you were another one of those people who is moving through this transition and recognizing that a lot of the stories that you've been told were falsehoods. And now we're to this point, you and I, and many, many other people across the country, particularly of our age group. We're over a certain age, two of us. And we've come to realize that we've been sold a pack of lies for a lot of our lifetime. And it's being actively deployed through this, what we now call censorship industrial complex. And it is deep and broad. And what I hear from SOCOM, special ops people, former PSYOPs colonels, as I've toured the country and talk about Psywar, is that
go ahead, I'm sorry.
They're pissed off. They're pissed off because a lot of the technology that they worked on for offshore combat has been turned against the American public. And that's the thing that I think matters the most right now, is we're in the grips of a new industry As Mike Benz puts it, they're mercenaries. They will work for the highest bidder, and the technology is incredibly powerful, particularly with the influence of the internet. They can control everything that you think, feel, believe. And in that environment, when the government is willing to deploy that technology on its citizens, the idea of fair and free elections and all the discussion about early voting and electronic ballot machines becomes moot. It's completely irrelevant because it's been proven. Google can swing undecided voters by 20 points. Okay, we are in deep shit right now, and the majority of Americans don't control their own mind and thoughts. They're not even aware of how deeply manipulated they are, and it's become normal. It has become the norm. It's been normalized, and this administration has taken it to a whole new level. God save us, what's going to happen over the next year with the elections coming on.
Jimmy, I just want to point out, most normal people do not want to have an abortion, even if they maybe need to have one. That is true to a degree, but don't discount there. And this is old. I remember this from years ago. Hashtag shout your abortion. There is a collection of maniacs who are very influential. They go to colleges, they get jobs in tech, and no, they want there to be abortions in a psychotic way that you wouldn't think is real. They openly say it. I just watched a clip of someone it was a trans woman who wanted to have a uterus transplanted so she could have an abortion with it.
Trying to be the first trans person.
That's on South Park. That's a South Park bit.
Really?
That happened in
Mr.
Mr. Garrison wanted to have.
Oh, that's
it's unbelievable.
Right. That's right.
They're doing things that were jokes. No, that's a real thing.
When people go, like for instance, just for a superficial example, when people see a movie and it's horrible, they call it an abortion. Nobody goes, "Oh no, I'm pro that. I'm pro horrible movie." Nobody's pro abort. So that's the pretzel that these people have had to twist themselves in. They want to still think of themselves as being on the left when they're really authoritarian fascists, and
they're cows. Is
and
what they are.
and they go along with mandating experimental medical treatments on their neighbor, and then they get mad at their neighbor. My whole thing is, the media is controlled by 6 companies, which means it's controlled by about 15 to 20 billionaires. The same billionaires that control the WEF, that control the WHO, which control Congress, which control your president, right? And so so people in journalism no longer come from blue collar backgrounds like they used to when I was a kid and when you were a kid. They all come from elite universities and they're class loyal, and they all know that they have to serve one or a handful of billionaire companies, and so they self-censor, they get censored, they're for pro-censorship, and that's why journalism sucks so much, and that's why people have to come to places like this to get their news. And people like Russell Brand and this show, and the Gray Zone, they're real journalists, and Glenn Greenwald, and so. Yep. So the billionaires get their journalists, quote unquote journalists, to report every story in a way that makes Americans turn on their neighbor and get distracted by hatred for their neighbor instead of getting angry at the billionaire oligarch class that actually is creating all the problems and controlling them.
I wrote an essay about this yesterday on Substack.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got my dogs having a little bit of a problem.
I completely agree with you. We are seeing synthetic controversies, was the title of the Substack. We're seeing weaponized controversy designed to fragment the body politic, specifically targeted as a weapon, as a cyber weapon. These synthetic controversies designed to drive people apart from each other. And it's being done on a daily basis in a world in which truth and facts are entirely subjective, where whatever you feel is most important and can define reality. It becomes child's play to craft synthetic truths and synthetic controversies that can be used to splinter opposition. Just as you say, it has become so trivial. And it is being done on a daily basis. I think that this new controversy about Christian nationalism is one of those. you see the left media talking about beating the drum about Christian nationalism and what a threat it is to democracy and freedom. And what that is people who are patriots who happen to also believe in God. That's the definition.
Well, also, hold on. They like to trot out these prop Christian nationalists. If you ever saw that, we played that America First kid. That's like some weird gay cult, not even a threat to anyone except the sad
Absolutely.
young men in that group. It's real sad what happens to them. And they bring them out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They get them online.
And
you trot them out. Oh, look, another Osama bin Laden. No, it ain't. They've been building this fake stuff up. You said Psy War, I noticed. You read that thing too, the memo about we need to stop psyops and do Psy War. Do you know what I'm talking about?
We're in the last stages of editing a significant book on Psy War, sovereignty, and rogue government. That's the title. And we've been investigating the Psy War technology. NATO calls it hybrid warfare. There's a whole Psy War manual.
I sent it to Jimmy.
That was signed off by our current Secretary of Defense. There are divisions, Psy War divisions across the United States. Have you ever heard of the 77th Brigade? I've dealt with them repeatedly in the UK. They're a formal branch of the British military that are basically paid trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ghost in the Machine commercial here is the same kind of thing. That Psy War memo, you talking about the one from 2006 that came out, and it was written, I can't remember the other guy, the colonel, who was on Fox News all the time back then. Now he's painted as a QAnon guy. It was him and Major Colonel Michael Aquino from the Temple of Set, who was in good standing with the U.S. military. The two of them wrote this report. PSYOPs are corny and people can see through it, but Psy War is where you give people the impression we're definitely going to win. You know how they're trying to do with Ukraine?
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to win.
We're going to win.
And they've been following this the whole time.
So do yourself a favor. Don't use Google. Use one of the other browser search engines and search NATO and hybrid warfare. It is now the official NATO policy position that hybrid warfare is the future. The mixture of Psy War, cognitive warfare, and kinetic warfare. That is the official NATO policy position. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to find all. And I cited it in that in one of my recent Substacks. Again, I pulled quotes from the one that I was talking about just a moment ago. Synthetic controversy. The NATO strategists are talking openly. In great detail about this technology and what they need to do with it and how it needs to be used. The thing is, as I mentioned, it's pissing off a hell of a lot of retired PSYOPs personnel from DOD, is that this has now been deployed against the U.S. citizens. It's deployed against domestic populations.
Yeah. Since 2011.
As soon as that happens, then the whole concept of individual sovereignty and autonomy becomes completely irrelevant because the tech is so powerful. And by the way, it's the people that are most susceptible to this tech are the highly educated.
Yeah.
They've been trained to follow authority, to respect authority, and to just go along with whatever they're told.
Well, being in debt will do that for a bullshit degree.
Yeah.
Being 80 grand in debt, you got a lot invested in making those expertise credentials, solid for all time.
Well,
I completely agree. I don't have any debt. Everything on my farm is completely paid for. I couldn't have done what I've done over the last 4 years if I had been indebted. It sets you free. Otherwise, you're an indentured servant.
So, okay, I have a mortgage. Thanks for that. And but so does this go back to this Smith-Mundt Act?
Oh yeah.
And then they repealed that, right? And
it was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act.
Modernization,
ostensibly because it was technically illegal that we were sending baseball signals to Cuba, and we just want them to be able to have baseball, and that's why and it was technically illegal. Like America would give a shit if that's illegal. And Obama signed that thing, and then it deployed. There's a Newsweek.
I did a deep dive and did real journalism on that one also, and it isn't quite that way. A lot of the folks on the right pitch this
Newsweek said it in 2011. That's the article I'm going off of.
But if you go in and read the CIA charter as it currently exists, the CIA has always had the authority under presidential direction and the director of the CIA to engage with domestic populations.
Really?
And DOD has the authority to the way that they are allowed to, technically, without transgressing anything, they're allowed to serve in an advisory role with their PSYWAR divisions against civilian populations. They're not technically supposed to deploy against civilian populations, but they can advise other parts of the government about how to do it.
No, the deployment, that's what was in the article. He deployed 70,000 online troops. That was the big thing, was deploying an actual group that go. So this is a long time ago when they were allowing this. Of course, they've always done it. Yeah.
Obama is at the center of this. Yeah. Absolutely. Which is why he gave that speech. And if it's slipped into your forgetting, go back and look at the speech that he gave at Stanford at the Hoover, where he defended the need to censor in order to preserve democracy.
And so, and they also, in 2011 around, I think it was in that National Defense Authorization Act, Section 1021, where they repealed habeas corpus, meaning all they have to do is say that you're a terrorist. And if they're now, they could just say you're working for a foreign adversary, which would make you a terrorist. And so, and then if you
and Jimmy, if you're spreading malinformation, you are defined as a domestic terrorist by Mayorkas and by DHS.
So anybody who says anything online that goes against the establishment, they'll say that's misinformation or malinformation. That makes you a terrorist. That means that they can now put you in jail without a trial, without a charge, for indefinite detention.
They can pull you out of the line at the airport. They can give you the dreaded 4S designation on your card. I mean, I'm constantly amazed every time I go back and forth between Europe that I'm not stopped.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to Europe on April 1st. By the way, we'll see you in Oslo. We're still tickets available in Oslo. We've added a second show in London. Go to jimmydore.com for those tickets. But I'm also, in all seriousness, I'm with you on that. I'm surprised because I know they got into my phone using Pegasus, so that had to be a state actor.
Absolutely. Oh, you are on it.
So that
I had a group that wanted me to go talk in British Columbia. And British Columbia has legislation pending right now that it would authorize fine or imprisonment of medical professionals that speak against the narrative concerning COVID. And I'm not going to go there. I'm really wary of crossing the border in Canada now. They have a similar bill it's passed the legislature in France. It's like $40,000 and up to 2 years, as I recall, for medical misinformation, and it just hasn't been signed yet. It hasn't been formally executed, but it's passed the legislature twice. That's where we're going. Just like the debanking, the central bank digital currency, and the digital IDs, and the digital passports, and all that stuff, it's all part of the same matrix, and they are criminalizing free speech, for sure, in an incremental fashion.
And they got half the country to go along with it.
They're lapping up. It's absolutely necessary to preserve democracy.
Yeah, to preserve democracy, we have to do the most undemocratic things in the world. We have to censor. We have to censor dissent. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what democracy is. And
they project again and again and again. They project onto us that which they are guilty of. But this is one of the fundamental principles of Sun Tzu.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, do you mean the art of war?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that?
Accuse your enemy that of which you're guilty of.
Yes.
Also, it's not, conservatives that you would think would, that seem to get a lot of this stuff. Friends of mine, in fact, one buddy of mine, they're all like, hey, the Quran, huh? The Quran, all the violence in the Quran. Are you shitting me? Remember we made fun of them because you couldn't just draw their prophet and they seemed real primitive, but now you got to worry about going to Canada or saying women shouldn't cut their tits off as kids.
Yeah.
Like, are conservatives crazy to pull that Koran shit at this point? They have more freedom in Koran countries now.
They could certainly say that women don't have penises, which
you don't have to ask them what a woman is. It's the one in the burqa. It's real simple. There's no surgery. They got an elegant solution that we couldn't come up with.
Yes. All right.
Well,
go ahead.
So mis, dis, and malinformation is going to be with us until we're in our grave, I fear.
We got to fight against it. And again, this isn't a left-right fight. This is us against them. And that's what people need to realize today, that people from the left and people who consider themselves on the left and right have way more in common right now than the establishment media wants you to think. And we all want the same things. We all want to end the wars, invest that money back here. We all want healthcare that doesn't bankrupt us. We all want freedom of speech, and we all want a living wage, and we all want a orderly border. And I had Dennis
and our children. We want our children safe and well educated in fundamental principles of ethics, right and wrong, and basic truths, mathematics.
How to use butt plugs.
Yeah.
No, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have the WHO saying that children should be sexualized at age 9.
What wording do they use? I believe you, but I mean, how do they say it? Like that?
It's pretty darn close to that. And Tedros was confronted about that. And he said he was asked, what data do they have to support that position? And he admitted they had no data. This is just opinion. This is another one of those things we feel this way, and therefore that's the truth.
Why would that guy be weighing in?
So, by the way, Tedros, if people don't know, isn't even a medical doctor, and he's a terrorist, right? A terrorist. I mean, and I don't use that word there. It's loosely.
Oh, it's an accurate description, well documented. He was third down within his terrorist organization in Africa.
Is that crazy?
And he was part of the terrorist organization that the United States happened to back in Ethiopia. And so, who's now the head of the WHO? That guy. So that's if you care where your medical dictates are coming from, it's coming from a guy who was a number 3 in a terrorist organization, isn't even a medical doctor. Does that make sense?
But he is a Marxist.
And
you would think, by the way, that these dumb shit celebrities after the We Are the World fiasco that directly harmed Ethiopia and did not help at all, where the money went to his dumb shit organization so they could kill more people, or just the Dalai Lama. When all the celebrities were the Dalai Lama, another CIA bullshit thing that he sucks some kid's tongue so they don't bring him up no more. It's like they're perennially fooled. Like Neil Young, how long has that guy been alive?
Well, the white helmets.
Or the white helmets.
The white helmets was completely there was complete psyop. That was an intelligence operation. The white helmets. They do a documentary on them. Hollywood gives them an Academy Award. Same thing happened with this guy who did the Ukraine documentary.
Oscars, the 200 shit. You don't know
20
anything.
days of whatever. And same thing. That guy is they give him an Academy Award, of course, because it's all. By the way, let's remember the Academy Awards booed Michael Moore when he talked against the Iraq War. That's who these people are. So don't forget it. And so that's where your medical dictates are coming from. They're coming. And by the way, we still listen to Bill Gates. Bill Gates, who is not only a megalomaniac, it doesn't take a genius to see that he's a megalomaniac monopolist, but he's also a homicidal maniac, which RFK Jr. proved because of all the vaccines he wants to give to people in Africa, which anyway, I don't even have time to go into it, but and he's not a doctor. Why does the news media go to a billionaire who didn't even finish college?
They censor Malone and let him talk.
They censor Robert Malone, but they let Bill Gates yap his brain off. He didn't even finish college. I'm sorry. Do you want to say something about that's because of money? That's right.
It's all about the bucks.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, Dr. Robert Malone, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your courage and your work. I'm glad you don't have debt.
What's the book called?
I'm glad you don't have. I'm glad you don't have
the old one. The one that came out a half ago is The Lies My Government Told Me in the Better Times Ahead or Better Times Coming. The new one is Psywar, Sovereignty, and Rogue Government.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, I'm sorry I don't have that loaded in the program so I could show. I'm gonna have to spank my producer for not having those things for you.
Well, that's okay. You forced me to announce a few things here, so good on you.
Okay. All right. No problem. All right. Well, Dr. Robert Malone, always welcome on the show. I know YouTube will suppress this, but Rumble won't. So thanks again. One of our most popular videos of all time, 800,000 views, even with them suppressing it on YouTube. Dr. Robert Malone. I don't know if you have to go off Google to look it up. You can't look it up on YouTube. You have to literally go find an outside search engine.
Let me give a shameless plug, Jimmy. Tonight is another episode dropping of Fallout with Yanya Kellick, where we do a half-hour segment on Epic Times every week, talking about all this kind of stuff that you and I have just had a good chat with. Although with Epic Times, I have to be a little more careful about my sources.
Okay, so now tell me, where can people find that?
So you have to go to Epic Times and Epic TV, and it's Fallout is what it's called, with Robert Malone and Yanya Kellick. And tonight's segment drops at 9:30, I think. 9 o'clock. I just got corrected.
Eastern time, Western time?
Eastern time.
Okay. All right. Yep. Everybody check that out. And can people find a link to that at your Twitter page?
I have posted. I always post on Friday the links. So, yeah, you can see that on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and True Social.
Okay. Fantastic. Dr. Robert Malone, always, thank you very much. Thanks for your work. Thanks for your courage. Thanks for taking time with us today. And we hope you come back soon.
Yeah, people are learning. Otherwise, why would they have to suppress you?
That's right.
If people weren't waking up, they wouldn't have to do this.
I just think it's because they're mean.
Okay. All right.
So, Jim, thanks a lot for having me on, and continue to be healthy and strong.
Hey, come see us do a live stand-up show. We're going to be in Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, London, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Edmonton, Alberta, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Denver, Colorado. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.